when KHAN-BROOK was being made. So there was times, obviously, over the years where Eddie Neely made it, Frank Neely made it. There was one moment I thought at Bramall Lane, actually, Kell was doing a press conference, and I had Shah on the phone, and I thought, we're going to make this fight now. And then he said, I've got some news for you. Amir's going to go and fight Canelo. I'm thinking, no, please, we're never going to get this fight done. But I think then they reached out and said, look, we're ready to do this fight. And there was so much, obviously, for Ben to work through, and difficulties with the weight and the money and all the rest of it. And often that's not my responsibility. That's where I say, look, I'll hand it to the lawyers, etc. But the fact is, I know Amir, I know Kell, and if I can just help out, sort of just smoothing it a bit, or just sort of, making it chug along, then I will. But it's not the broadcaster's responsibility to make the fight. But obviously we're heavily involved, and we definitely want the best we can have on Sky. We can't have everything, as I've said, but we want the best we can deliver. And it's important that there is that quality control, and that we deliver what we can for our customers alongside our huge breadth of sport and all the channels. Boxing is very much part of it.
You mentioned Khan and Brook. We've mentioned it a few times in this interview. We've waited for, it must be a decade, if not a decade thereabouts, for that fight to be made. What was it about this time around, should we say, that got it over the line? What's different now compared to the umpteen amount of other times that you would have tried to make the fight?
I think they both needed each other. I think that's the truth of it. I think they both needed each other now. They'd had those defeats to Terence Crawford, and I think that no one really wanted them to retire without fighting each other. But at the same time, we never had Hatton Witter, we never had Lewis and Bowe, we never had Calzaghe and Froch. There's loads of fights that didn't happen for whatever reason, and you're left thinking, like we did with our fantasy fights, who could beat who. It was always important for me. I've known Kell since he was a 10-year-old kid in Winkerbank. I remember him walking and his hands through the up to Brendan on the Winkerbank floor in the St Thomas gym. And so I've known Kell his life, really, and Amir since he was a precocious teenager, and going to Athens, and you get close to these guys, and of course you have to have a distance. We're broadcasters, they're fighters, but you get very close to them and their families. And I've always known that they both wanted the fight. Maybe Kell's chased it harder. Maybe it's been more personal to Kell because he's probably got more jealousy of what Amir's done. But I think they both really did want the fight. Amir's probably been protected and been taken another way, and he's gone to America, etc., and done very well. And Kell's done well with his opportunities, of course, both former world champions. But I think the time was right for this fight. It felt like it was now. You've got to remember that Froch and Groves obviously fought towards the end of Carl's career. It was the second fight was his last fight. Yes, he could have fought on, he could have fought Chavez. There was talk of it, but he went out on a high. And I've always thought that KHAN-BROOK would come together and maybe, listen, we want this to be a fantastic fight. It's all about February the 19th now. Who's going to win? No one knows who's going to win. No one's ever known who's going to win. And now probably even more so. I'm not even sure the fighters know deep down. They say they do, but ultimately we don't. If we get a humdinger of a fight, we could maybe do it again, and they could have that sort of that nice story, that nice narrative to go through 2022, or maybe we'll get a definitive winner on February the 19th. It felt the right time to have it. And then I thought, we're going to get a lot of people saying, it's too late, it's they're past their best, etc. And of course we had a bit of that at the beginning, but I think now people are really fascinated with this fight. I think they've seen that they've gone off to training camp. I've spoken to both of them regularly. They are in the shape. We always hear it from fighters in the shape of their lives, but I think they really are. I think they know they cannot afford to lose this fight, Rob. I think, the Sunday morning comes, February the 20th, and the loser's going to have to live with that forever because that's the fight that you're going to be linked with. Never mind all the Devon Alexander, the great performances, the Maidanas, all that sort of stuff that Amir's had, or Kell going over to beat Sean Porter in America. Forget all that. It's going to be about KHAN-BROOK. They're almost, the names just sort of run off. It's like Froch Groves, and they're doing these tours now, Froch and Groves together. You've got to think back, actually, who else did Carl beat in his career? Do you know what I mean? And for George, he lost both fights, but that made him. And yes, he went on to win a world title, but that's synonymous. Barrera will always be mentioned with Morales, Corrales and Castillo, Gatti and Ward, Holyfield and Bowe. They're linked together forever in history. And I think KHAN and Brooks, the anticipation has been so much that now we're finally going to get it. It's really, really exciting. I just hope that there's, they get to the ring and everything goes right and we just get a really good fight. And I think they're not the fighters they were at their utter peaks. Of course they're not, but they're still former world champions who are very, very good. And it's just got everything. It's got huge personal pride, grudge. This is a duel you want to see. And I think it was made because, I got a call independently to me saying, look, I think the time's now. I think we've got this fight, together. I took it to Ben, and Ben was the one that sort of worked night and day to make it happen and get the right lawyers on it and make sure that it, the two sides were sort of kept apart really, and the negotiations were dealt with like that, and then it came together and boom, it went out. And I think it was important for the fighters that they were on Sky. I mean, Amir said that they were offered more money elsewhere. I think Eddie did, but I think they wanted to be on Sky. I think this fight is right for Sky, and I'm so excited it's actually happening.
So am I. We had the podcast the other day where we did our kind of 2022. I'm KHAN-BROOK. Well, you can have a Khan and Brook side of the scarf, and I'm fully invested in KHAN-BROOK. I can't wait for it. It's a fight I've longed to see for a long time. Is it a world level fight now?
It's a good question. I think it's, in many ways, and this is going to sound weird, in many ways it's bigger than a world title, but it's much smaller as well. So I don't know if it is. They both lost to Terence Crawford, who is, arguably the best or one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the sport. So it doesn't mean they're not world level. They've won world titles. I think they've been world level for a long time. Whether they are still good enough, the pair of them, to become world champions again is questionable. I mean, one definitive performance from either, and yes, maybe we'll get another world title opportunity. I don't think this fight is about that. I don't think this fight is about it being a British level fight or a world level fight. I think this is about two extremely talented and respected British fighters of the last 20 years getting it on in a match that has been waited for too long, and now it's finally happening. And I think that what's brilliant about it is the unpredictability of what is going to happen in the ring. You could see a scenario where Amir goes out and his hands are just too quick for Kell and he can't cope. You could see a scenario where Kell lands a right hand on him early and Khan can't cope. You see a scenario where Khan's hands are quicker than his feet, that Kell's timing is not quite right, that both hit the canvas. Who wants it more? The orbital problems to Kell going to reappear? Is Khan's chin going to be a problem? Or are we going to get a fantastic 12-round fight? I think what it is, it's a level playing field. Whether that level is world, just under, whatever, I don't think it really matters. It certainly doesn't matter that it's not for a world title. It's Khan-Brook, Brook-Khan, Khan-Brook. Who's going to win? Khan. Who's going to win? Brook. It's like Froch and Groves. People say now, what belt? It was for the world two middleweight titles, but what belts? People aren't going to remember. It was Froch or Groves. Now it's Khan and Brook. And I tell you what, people are split down the middle.
I completely agree. I say to people, all five are in play, which means knockout or decision either way, or the draw. Like none of those outcomes would surprise
or some controversy. I mean, you just can't. You can't write what's going to happen. There's times I wake up and I think Amir just has too much skill-wise and speed for Kell, and then I wake up and think Kell is a really solid, brilliant fighter at his best, and his timing is fantastic. And Shane Mosley and Vernon Forrest, I remember that fight. Everyone thought Shane Mosley was going to win, and I went to interview Vernon, and he said, jab beats speed, and it did. Can Kell's jab get going? And it's a really fascinating one. I think it's personally more important to Kell, this fight. I think he's waited for it. He's hunted Khan down so much. I think for Amir, it was for a long time just another fight, but now he realizes how important this is. And I think that that's why he's got himself into shape. David Hay was telling me he was in shape a long time before even the announcement for this. I think he knows that he cannot afford to lose this, or that, you know, that legacy will be affected, badly affected. And Kell, you know, Kell spent Christmas and New Year in Fuerteventura cycling up hills, 90-mile bike rides, you know, no Christmas pudding or excess for Kell. And, you know, we know that he's had a tendency to do that a la Ricky Hatton in the past, but they both are sounding fantastic mentally and physically in just the best possible condition they could be. And rightfully so, because this is a fight of the ages, and I really think it's going to reach fever pitch by the 18th of February, by that Friday night, by the weigh-in. But I just think it's going to be an incredible week, and I just hope that, you know, everybody gets to see it, because it's not all the time that these fights are made, and
No.
we've got to enjoy it.
No, I completely agree. You mentioned there about the weigh-in, just kind of picturing it there, weigh-in, everything happening. What you'll definitely get this as well. What I'm looking for, that 15 seconds after the referee gives them the announcement, gives them the instructions, and they go back to the ring, and it's going to be, I mean, you'll be there, you'll be ringside commentating, I'll be there, and it'll be like, oh shit, we're here now. KHAN-BROOK, that 15 seconds.
Often that's my most favourite time.
I always say to people, if you could bottle that 15 seconds of anticipation and sell it.
People say to me the 100 metres Olympic final, just before that, just that few seconds where they're getting down into their positions. And I think that with boxing, I think that's how lucky we are to be ringside and to feel that and see that. And I used to say to the team, when I was running the content side of the team, we had production meetings, and I said, thank you so much for all the work you put in for the last 2, 3, 4 weeks. I mean, you could not have done any more. You're on your knees. You couldn't have done any more. Let's just have one more night. This is it. And there's nothing you or I can do when that bell rings. There's nothing. And I think that moment before that first bell rings, you realize that almost like the hype, the work, the build-up is finished. None of it matters. And what matters now is what is delivered by the two fighters who are brave enough to be doing this for us.